I never expected a normal Tuesday to turn into a public performance, but that is exactly what Sarah seemed to enjoy, turning private slights into a spectacle and dressing them up as humor. We had been married for 5 years. I am Daniel, an events manager who plans moments for other people to feel important. At home I preferred quiet, sincere evenings and simple respect. Sarah, on the other hand, loved attention, the louder the better. She could make a room laugh and then just as easily make someone feel invisible. I had learned to shrug most things off. Pride, after all, is costly when you pay it out every day. That morning began with a small joke at breakfast. Sarah teased me about a minor mistake I made at work, and our friends laughed politely. I smiled and let it pass. But nothing about her teasing that week felt friendly. It had an edge, a deliberate sharpening. Over the next few days her jabs sharpened into mockery. Public, pointed, and repeated. At a dinner with friends she mimed my nervous habit, the way I smoothed my tie. People chuckled. I felt my face go warm, a hollow sinking inside that she noticed and exploited. She looked at me, amused, and made sure the laugh landed where it would hurt. The pattern continued. At a colleague's fundraiser she whispered a private story about me across the room, until everyone was listening. At brunch she interrupted my conversation with a snide aside about my salary, loud enough that the waiter heard and the table shifted its attention. It was deliberate. It had a rhythm and an audience. I tried to speak up once calmly to ask for discretion. She turned it into another punchline. "Daniel's being dramatic," she said, the room laughing with her. I held my composure, but beneath the surface a plan began to form, not of revenge that would mirror her cruelty, but of a response that would restore dignity and expose the cheap theater for what it was. On Saturday she organized a charity gala. She invited every social circle we had in town, neighbors, colleagues, people who liked her Instagram posts, and made a point to introduce me as the quiet one who plans things. Her smile was a careful mask. I watched her move through the crowd, soaking in compliments, then returning to jab at me in front of old friends. Each sting built the case in my head. This wasn't accidental. This was performance art at my expense. When she stepped onto the stage to present the auction items, she launched into a story that painted me as foolish. A light-hearted anecdote that left me small in front of everyone who respected me professionally. The laughter that followed felt like a verdict. I sat still, pulse steady, watching her bask in the glow of that approval. I had 2 choices: crumble in private, or answer publicly in a way that did not cheapen me. I chose the latter. I waited until the applause died down. Sarah was smiling, triumphant, believing she had completed her performance. The room was hers, and she thought I was still trapped in the role of the embarrassed husband. But I had been planning this for days, quietly, carefully, without giving her a hint. This wasn't about anger or vindictiveness. It was about reclaiming respect in a way that would be undeniable. I stood slowly, letting the attention shift. The room sensed the change immediately. The subtle shift in posture. The quiet authority that replaced embarrassment with composure. Sarah's smile faltered slightly as her eyes met mine. That was the moment she realized the game had changed. She had expected me to stay small, to blend into the background while she took the spotlight. Instead, I was about to turn that spotlight back on her. Without shouting, without theatrics, just clear, undeniable consequence. I began recounting small examples from the week, moments where she mocked me, interrupted conversations, and turned private matters into public jokes. Each example was calm, precise, factual. I didn't embellish, I didn't raise my voice. I let the room absorb the contrast between her performance and the truth. People shifted in their seats. Some frowned, others exchanged quiet looks of surprise. She tried to interrupt once, but I maintained eye contact and a steady tone that left no room for contradiction. As I spoke, the laughter that had once followed her jokes slowly faded. A quiet tension replaced it. A realization that what she had believed would be charming and clever was instead shallow, petty, and manipulative. I could see her pulse quicken, a flicker of panic in her eyes. She had underestimated me. Underestimated the power of composure and measured truth. By the time I finished, the audience's sympathy and respect had quietly shifted. Where she had stood as the sparkling, untouchable center, she now appeared defensive, exposed, and remarkably ordinary. Then I paused, letting the silence hang. I didn't need to add theatrics. The impact was already there. The room understood. Sarah understood. I gave her a faint, almost imperceptible nod and said, "The spotlight can't hide everything." That was all. No shouting, no humiliation. Just clarity, authority, and undeniable consequence. People's attention slowly returned to the event, but Sarah no longer commanded it. I sat down calmly, letting the moment settle. She moved beside me, lips pressed together, her laughter gone, replaced by the sharp edge of self-awareness. The game she thought she controlled had ended. I had not only defended my dignity, but I had done it publicly, without resorting to the same cheap tactics she had used. Respect had been restored. Boundaries had been made visible. And Sarah, for the first time that night, saw the weight of her actions reflected back, clear as the lights on the gala stage. After the gala, the drive home was quiet. Sarah didn't speak much, and when she did, her voice lacked the usual sharpness. The confidence she flaunted in public had evaporated, leaving only a tentative, unsettled version of herself. I didn't gloat, I didn't lecture. The message had already been delivered. In front of everyone who mattered, the consequences of her mockery were now evident. The next morning, I awoke to the subtle tension in the apartment. Sarah moved around silently, avoiding eye contact, as if every glance might remind her of the previous night's revelation. For the first time in years, she treated me with cautious respect rather than playful contempt. It wasn't forced, it wasn't temporary, it was real. That night at the gala had shifted the balance, and I could feel it. Over the following days, the change continued. Sarah no longer felt the need to dominate conversations or highlight my flaws in public. Our friends noticed it too. Comments that once drew laughter at my expense now passed without reaction, leaving the air calm and controlled. I kept my routine, my composure, my calm presence. Nothing aggressive, nothing punitive. Simply consistency, dignity, and the quiet demonstration of boundaries that could not be crossed. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It wasn't about making her feel small for the sake of satisfaction. It was about establishing a precedent. Mockery and public humiliation would not be tolerated. I had shown, without theatrics, that respect is non-negotiable and that attempts to undermine it will be met with clarity and composure. Sarah had expected conflict, a scene, or some reactive emotion. Instead, she received control, patience, and quiet authority. By the end of the week, the dynamic between us had shifted completely. Sarah approached me differently. Her words measured, her actions deliberate, no longer attempting to provoke or dominate. Our home, once a theater of subtle power plays, became a space where mutual understanding replaced performance. People outside the marriage saw the result too. She no longer controlled the narrative through humor or spectacle. I did, simply by being steady, observant, and unshaken. I learned something important that night. Respect is earned, maintained, and when threatened, defended in a way that leaves no doubt about your limits. Sarah had tried to mock me, to diminish me in front of others, but she had underestimated one key factor. I knew who I was and I knew my worth. That knowledge became the shield that no public ridicule could pierce, and the sword that exposed the superficiality of her performance. In the end, the message was clear. Mock me in public? The consequences are visible, immediate, and undeniable. It took courage, restraint, and quiet strategy. But in 60 minutes, I turned a humiliating situation into a lesson she would never forget. Sarah left the gala with more than embarrassment. She left with understanding. And for me, Daniel, the night reinforced the one truth that matters above all else. Dignity cannot be mocked, control cannot be stolen, and respect, once asserted with quiet authority, is permanent.